You know, somewhere along the way, we got it all mixed up. We started chasing success like it was a finish line, a destination, something you could hold in your hands and say, now I've made it. But what if you stopped trying to be successful? What if instead of running faster, you simply sat down for a moment and asked yourself why you started running in the first place? You see, I've met a lot of people in my life, men and women who were running full speed ahead. They had the car, the title, the bank account, the applause. But inside, something was missing. They had achieved, but they hadn't arrived. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with ambition. I love ambition. I love what it can do to a person, how it makes them stretch, grow, and discover new parts of themselves. But there's a danger when ambition turns into obsession, when success becomes a label you chase instead of a lifestyle you live. A friend once told me, "Jim, I just want to be successful." I asked him, "What do you mean by that?" He paused and said, "You know, have money, recognition, freedom." And I said, "All right, but tell me, if you had all that and you lost your peace of mind, would you still call that success?" He didn't answer, he just looked down. Because deep down he knew, success without peace is just stress with a smile. You see, I believe success isn't something you get, it's something you become. It's not about what you achieve, it's about what you attract by the kind of person you become. That's what I meant when I said, success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become. But somewhere we flipped that around. We started chasing the shadows instead of the light. We started running after the applause instead of the quiet work that builds character. We started measuring life by trophies instead of truth. Let me tell you a little story. There was once a farmer who spent every day comparing his crops to his neighbor's. If his neighbor's field looked greener, he worked harder. If his neighbor's field looked worse, he relaxed. He never realized that the energy he spent comparing was the very energy he could have used cultivating. That's what happens when you chase success by comparison. You start to live someone else's life, their version of achievement, their version of fulfillment. And in doing so, you lose your own. So I ask again, what if you stopped trying to be successful? What if instead you started trying to be useful? What if your focus shifted from impressing others to improving yourself? What if your goal wasn't to make millions, but to make meaning? Because the truth is, success in its deepest form isn't loud, it's quiet. It's a calm kind of confidence that says, I'm doing the best I can, where I am, with what I have. That's the kind of success that lasts. That's the kind that fills not just your wallet, but your soul. When I was younger, I wanted to be rich. I thought money could solve everything. And then one day I met a man named Earl Schoaf. He became my mentor. He said to me, "Jim, if you want to have more, you have to become more." That one sentence changed my life because it made me realize life doesn't respond to need, it responds to deserve. And how do you deserve more? You grow, you study, you discipline yourself, you take responsibility. You see, the problem with chasing success is that it keeps you in motion, but not necessarily in progress. You're busy, but not better. You're moving, but not maturing. You're collecting things, but not building character. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do is stop. Stop and think, stop and breathe, stop and ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming? Because at the end of the day, you don't really get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to that hour. And that value doesn't come from trying to be successful, it comes from becoming valuable. You know, there's an old saying, if you chase 2 rabbits, you'll catch none. Well, many people today are chasing 12 rabbits. Money, fame, validation, attention, success. And wondering why they're tired. They don't need more energy. They need more clarity, and clarity doesn't come from chasing. It comes from stillness, from understanding what really matters to you. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's your craft. Maybe it's your contribution to others. Whatever it is, find it. Nurture it. Because when you do that, success finds you. You see, life rewards intention. When you're intentional about growth, kindness, and contribution, the rewards come naturally. It's like planting seeds in good soil. You don't have to beg the harvest to come. You just have to tend the soil and wait patiently. As I often say, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And that discipline doesn't come from trying to be successful. It comes from trying to do what's right every single day. So maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop chasing and start becoming. Because when you stop running after success, you might finally notice success has been walking beside you all along. You know, when we stop chasing success, something interesting begins to happen. The noise starts to fade. And in that quiet space, we begin to hear the truth again. Most people never hear it because they're too busy trying to be seen. They're trying to prove they're somebody, to the world, to their parents, to the people on social media. But let me tell you something. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to improve something. Yourself, your habits, your mindset, your contribution. There's a big difference between proving and improving. Proving is driven by insecurity. Improving is driven by purpose. And purpose always outlasts pressure. I remember meeting a young man years ago after one of my seminars. He was well-dressed, sharp, full of energy. He came up and said, "Mr. Rohn, I want to be just like you, successful, respected, admired." I smiled and said, "That's good, but tell me, why?" He looked a little puzzled and said, "Because I want people to know my name." I said, "Son, that's not success. That's fame. Fame fades. Success lasts. And the only kind of success that lasts is the one built on service." He didn't understand it then, but years later he sent me a letter saying, "Now I get it." I stopped trying to be known, and I started trying to make a difference, and everything changed. You see, when you focus on service, success sneaks up on you. When you focus on becoming valuable, people will find you. You don't have to shout. You don't have to chase. You just have to contribute. That's why I often say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. That's the secret. If you spend your time trying to become more skilled, more wise, more useful, you won't have to run after opportunity. Opportunity will come knocking. Let me share a little parable with you. There was once a candle in a dark room sitting beside a mirror. The candle said to the mirror, "I want to shine like you. Everyone sees your light." The mirror smiled and said, "But I have no light of my own. I only reflect yours." And that's what life does. It reflects what we are. If you're calm, life becomes calmer. If you're grateful, life feels generous. If you're constantly chasing, life keeps running. The secret is not in chasing the light, but becoming the light. Because when you do, you won't need anyone to notice. They'll feel it. Now, one of the reasons people get stuck in this constant pursuit of success is because they confuse achievement with fulfillment. Achievement is reaching a goal. Fulfillment is feeling alive while reaching it. Achievement is external. Others can see it. Fulfillment is internal. Only you can feel it. And you can achieve a lot without ever feeling fulfilled. But you can't be fulfilled without growing, without learning, without giving. You see, fulfillment doesn't come from the end of the road. It comes from the road itself, from the journey, from knowing you gave your best, even when no one was watching. I'll tell you something. Some of the happiest people I've met weren't the ones with the biggest houses or the loudest applause. They were the ones who found contentment in small things. They enjoyed the process of becoming. They understood that real success isn't something you reach, it's something you live. I once met a janitor in a corporate office, an older gentleman. Every morning he would greet people with a smile. He would whistle while cleaning the floors. I asked him one day, "How do you stay so cheerful every single day?" He said, "Mr. Rohn, I learned a long time ago that happiness isn't in the job. It's in the person doing the job." And I'll never forget that, because that man had more peace than some of the executives upstairs. He had found his rhythm, that calm balance between gratitude and growth. You see, when you stop trying to be successful, you start trying to be faithful. Faithful to the moment, to the task at hand, to the purpose life gives you today. And strangely enough, that's what brings the kind of success that lasts. It reminds me of something my mentor told me once. He said, "Jim, the goal isn't to make $1 million. The goal is to become the kind of person who can make $1 million. Because if you become that person, disciplined, generous, skilled, patient, you'll never have to worry about losing it. You can always make it again." That's the power of becoming instead of chasing. Chasing gives you trophies. Becoming gives you transformation. And transformation, everyone, that's what life is really about. It's not about the applause, the titles, or the achievements. It's about becoming a little wiser today than you were yesterday. It's about learning to handle disappointment with grace, success with humility, and failure with perspective. That's real maturity. That's real success. And when you understand that, your whole approach to life changes. You stop rushing. You stop competing. You stop trying to impress. You simply start living with intention. You realize that every day is an opportunity to grow, not to prove. Every challenge is a teacher. Every mistake is a mirror. And every season of struggle is just shaping you into someone stronger, someone deeper, someone who can handle the blessings when they finally come. So the next time you find yourself asking, "Why am I not successful yet?" ask instead, "What am I becoming?" Because that's the better question. You might be surprised to find that the more you grow, the less you need to chase. Because success isn't running away. It's waiting for you to catch up to who you were meant to be. You know, there's something interesting about this whole idea of not trying to be successful. It goes against everything the world teaches us. From the time we're young, we're told to chase something. Grades, trophies, promotions, titles. We're taught that life is a ladder, and if you climb high enough, you'll finally be happy. But have you ever noticed that the higher some people climb, the emptier they feel? They reach the top of the ladder and realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. I've met people who had everything society calls success: money, recognition, followers, respect. Yet when you talk to them privately, they'll tell you, "I feel lost." And it's not because they failed. It's because they won at the wrong game. See, the world's definition of success is loud. It says, get more, do more, be more. But the real truth, the timeless truth, is quieter. It says, become more aware, become more grateful, become more at peace. Happiness is not something you postpone for the future. It is something you design for the present. That's a powerful thought because it means you can stop running today. You can stop waiting for something out there to make you feel complete. You can design happiness here, now, through your mindset, your values, your daily disciplines. Let me tell you about a farmer I once knew, an older man named William. He owned a small piece of land in the countryside. Nothing fancy, just acres of soil, a barn, a few animals. Every morning before sunrise, he would sit on his porch, sip his coffee, and watch the sky turn gold. One day, a businessman passing through town stopped to talk to him. He said, "You've been here your whole life, haven't you? Don't you ever want more? A bigger farm, a bigger house?" William smiled and said, "I already have everything that matters. I just learned to notice it." The businessman laughed and said, "But aren't you afraid of being left behind?" The farmer said, "Son, the only thing worse than being left behind is spending your life running in the wrong direction." And that's the wisdom most people miss. They keep running, but they never stop to ask, where am I actually going? Success isn't about speed, it's about direction. And sometimes slowing down is the only way to see where you're truly headed. Now, I'm not saying don't have goals. I'm not saying stop dreaming. I'm saying before you chase, make sure what you're chasing matters. Because goals without meaning are just motion without purpose. You can be busy all day long, meetings, messages, hustle, and still be going nowhere. But 1 hour of reflection, 1 hour of clarity can save you years of wasted effort. That's why I often tell people, don't just work hard, work wisely. And wisdom comes from stillness. You can't hear wisdom in noise. You find it in the quiet moments, early in the morning, when the world hasn't started shouting yet. If you listen closely, life will tell you what truly matters. It will whisper, you don't need more. You need meaning. The older I got, the more I realized something simple but profound. Success doesn't bring peace. Peace brings success. When you're at peace with who you are, you stop fighting the world. You stop needing to control everything. You stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. And in that stillness, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to grow naturally, not forcefully, not anxiously, just like a tree grows, quietly, consistently, towards the light. Growth that comes from peace lasts. Growth that comes from pressure cracks. That's why you see so many people rise fast but fall just as quickly. Because their foundation wasn't built on peace, it was built on panic. They didn't grow, they rushed. They didn't mature, they multiplied. And anything multiplied without maturity becomes chaos. But when you grow slowly, when you allow time to teach you, when you let wisdom guide you instead of ego, then every success that comes feels earned, not forced. You appreciate it more, you handle it better, and you don't lose yourself in the process. You see, life has a strange way of giving you what you're ready for. Not what you want, what you're ready for. And sometimes, the reason success hasn't come yet isn't because life is unfair. It's because you're still being shaped to handle what you've asked for. So instead of saying, why isn't it happening yet? Maybe ask, what am I still meant to learn? Because when the lessons are learned, the blessings arrive naturally. There's a peace that comes from letting go of the race, from knowing you're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn. It doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop rushing. It's the difference between progress and panic. Progress feels peaceful. Panic feels desperate. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, you find it. The moment you stop trying to be somebody, you start becoming the person you were meant to be all along. That's why one of my most timeless lessons was this: success is not to be pursued, it is to be attracted by the person you become. When you become disciplined, when you become kind, when you become generous, success can't help but find you. Because you're no longer chasing it, you're radiating it. And that's a far better way to live. You know, as I reflect on all of this, I realize that maybe the greatest discovery a person can make is that peace and success aren't two separate destinations. They're one and the same. When you find peace in what you do, when your work feels like a reflection of your values, when your days carry quiet purpose instead of loud pressure, you've already succeeded. It's not about the car or the house or the applause. Those things are fine, they're rewards, but they're not reasons. The real reward is who you become along the way. One of my favorite things to tell people is this: don't set your goals too low. If you don't need much, you won't become much. But I'd also say this: don't set your goals only to impress others. Set them to express who you truly are, because that's the real art of living. To let your goals become expressions of your growth, not symbols of your status. Imagine this: what if, instead of asking, "How can I be successful?" you asked, "How can I serve better? How can I give more value? How can I live more meaningfully?" If you do that, success will follow. Quietly, naturally, gracefully. Let me tell you a small story. There was a teacher who had spent 30 years teaching in a small town. She never became famous, never made a fortune, but when she retired, hundreds of her former students showed up to thank her. One said, "You believed in me when no one else did." Another said, "You taught me how to believe in myself." And she sat there, tears in her eyes, realizing that she may never have been successful by the world's definition, but she had changed lives. And that's real success. Because here's the truth: success is not how much you have, it's how much you give without losing yourself. It's not how far you go, it's how deeply you grow. It's not how loud your life gets, it's how peaceful your heart stays. If you can end your days knowing you gave your best, treated people kindly, and grew into a better version of yourself, you've lived well. That's why I always tell people, don't wait for the world to validate you. The world's applause is short-lived. Today you're trending, tomorrow you're forgotten. But if you live by timeless principles, discipline, gratitude, humility, service, those never fade. Because success built on ego is fragile, but success built on character, that lasts forever. Think of it this way: when you chase success, you might win or lose, but when you focus on becoming the right kind of person, you always win. And I think that's what life is trying to teach us, that it's not about the trophies, it's about the transformation. Not about the spotlight, but the substance. Not about being known, but being real. It's like a tree. It doesn't chase sunlight, it grows toward it. And the deeper its roots, the stronger it stands through storms. That's how you want your life to be: rooted in truth, reaching toward growth, grounded in peace. Now, some people might say, "Jim, if I stop trying to be successful, won't I lose my ambition?" Number, you won't lose it, you'll purify it. Ambition without clarity is noise, but ambition guided by purpose, that's music. It moves people, it creates harmony. So keep your ambition, just let it serve you, not control you. Let it flow from peace, not panic, because when your ambition comes from a calm heart, it becomes unstoppable. You're not chasing anymore, you're attracting. You'll notice something else too. Life becomes simpler. You'll wake up and start appreciating small things again. A sunrise, a conversation, a moment of stillness. You'll realize that simplicity isn't a lack of ambition, it's the presence of clarity. And with that clarity, everything changes. You'll find yourself working harder, but with joy, not fear. You'll give more, Not because you're trying to prove something, but because it feels right. You'll live more fully because you'll finally understand you were never meant to chase life. You were meant to live it. So what happens when you stop trying to be successful? You rediscover life. You rediscover yourself. And you start walking a path that feels right, not just looks right. And in time, the world will notice. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you lived the truest. That's the kind of success that leaves a mark. Not on the internet, but in people's hearts. Not for a season, but for generations. And when you reach the end of your road, you won't be asking, "Did I make it?" You'll be smiling quietly and saying, "I became it." Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And that's the truth. When you build your life on simple, steady disciplines, such as gratitude, kindness, self-reflection, and growth, you build something that lasts. So maybe the next time someone asks you what success means to you, you can smile and say, "It means peace. It means purpose. It means becoming a little better every day." Because that's the real secret. When you stop trying to be successful, you start being successful. And maybe, just maybe, that's what life was trying to teach you all along. Success is not to be pursued. It is to be attracted by the person you become.